Hello there. This is a report on our 2025 Kenya trip. Thanks to everyone who prayed and fasted for this team. As one Kenyan said, I think this was the best team you've ever had. This video is here to give you an overview of what took place and to see how your prayers and fasting were answered. Upon arriving, we got to our hotel and went to bed. On the first day, we all got out of the bus and went to King David's house. David and his wife served us all a lunch, and we also got to celebrate Jacob's 20th birthday. And of course, our team loved holding David and Mary's kids in their arms. We then separated, and the women had a shower for his wife Mary, and the men went with David to see where his vision is of building a home for the disabled Maasai children. We ate out at a restaurant that night and then returned to our hotel. The next day, we packed up all of our bags and got into the bus and headed to Namanga, right next to the Tanzania border. On the way, we picked up Ronnie and Denka, two of their kids, Grace and Heditia, and along with Sonia, who does our Delivering Dignity videos. By the way, both Grace and Denka are pregnant. And during this trip, Denka never felt sick, though she was sick before and she was sick after, so that shows how God was answering your prayers and fasting. On the way down to Namanga, we stopped off at an orphanage and worshiped God with these kids and handed out clothing, taught a little, had a lunch with them, gave them extra food, and then played with the kids. We also got a tour of the orphanage from the rooms to where they live all the way through to the kitchen. We then went to our new hotel in Namanga, what Debbie calls the Garden of Eden. After dinner, the ladies got together and put together gift bags for the ladies they would be meeting in the upcoming week. The next day, we went to a church in Namanga. There, the team got to see Maasai worship and learned how to dance like the Maasai women. We also gave our song that we love to preach on that was translated into Swahili. I preached on the difference between being a child of God and a disciple of Christ. After a lunch for the entire team along with the church, we split up and taught the women, the men, the youth, and the children. The next day, we had to get into two small vans because we were going way out into the bush and the roads were extremely rough. Upon arriving, two of our team members got to help cook for a short bit, and then we all met in the church. Becky, a pediatrician from Alabama, spoke on how to take care of your children. The Maasai really appreciated it. Many of our team members also played with the smaller kids from the school that was close by. And Denka got to teach them in the school while the classes were still going on. What was really neat was that in this area, 5 years earlier, there were no believers. Nemo found out about them and fed them through Project 9/7, and because she brought them food, they said, "You don't even know us, but you brought us food in your God's name. We want to know your God." Since then, many have become Christians, and the church has been built along with the school. It shows you the power of meeting their physical needs through Project 9/7. As we drove home, a highlight was seeing a wild elephant right next to the road. We weren't in a safari park, we were just out in the wild. The next day, we went to a nearby church where Debbie first started discipling Maasai women. We split up, the men and the women, and Becky once again taught on health for young women. Bob Saunders and I'm known as Bob 1, Bob Saunders is known as Bob 2, got to teach the men. It was fun seeing Bob Saunders teach, as this was his first time training others. After a lovely lunch of beans and rice and cooked cabbage, we went back to our small groups. When that was finished, we all loaded back up into the large van and headed back to Nairobi, eating dinner at a nice restaurant, and then dropping off our Kenyan friends. The next day, we did another Project 9/7 feeding to the widows of a small town Nemo ministers to on a regular basis. We met at the pastor's house and learned that the pastor is well known because he feeds not only the widows of his church, but all the widows, no matter what church they go to or whether or not they are believers. He also survives by raising pigs. We got a tour of the pig farm, and after that, we all packed the food into bags and headed out. Some of the widows were in tears, so thankful for what we were doing. Others are just simply overwhelmingly grateful. A highlight for Debbie was being able to come back and see one of the widows that she had bonded with last year. It was a fun time being the hands and feet of Jesus. That afternoon, we switched hotels, putting all of our bags on top of the bus. Two ladies were hesitant to ask me if they could go up on top and load the bags, but I quickly said sure, to their surprise, and they happily became our baggage loaders for the rest of the trip. The next morning, we were up and ready by 6 a.m. and got into 3 vans, which could go deep into the bush, and King David led the way. On the way out there, we stopped at a restaurant, and we slowly made our way deeply into the bush, passing through Magadi and seeing the flamingos. We then went to a manada, a semi-small village where people lived and others would gather, and were greeted the traditional Maasai way with the women and the men dancing. Men and women, what you see on National Geographic, we live out there in the bush. They then greeted us, each one by one. When we were all seated, Debbie and I got to introduce the team, and each member was given a personalized bracelet with our names on them. We then got to meet the young girls that were being given the mattresses, the blanket, the solar-powered lights, the food, and the dignity kits. Our hearts were broken and thrilled at the same time as we saw how young these precious girls were, knowing what was happening to them, and then knowing it would never be happening again. We then drove to another manada where we had lunch. David had a chef there who cooked out in the middle of the bush and who prepared an absolutely delicious meal. At this manada, David had done an add-a-room program, so the team got to see the inside of one of these rooms that were built for the girls. And before the sun went down, we did an impromptu safari and got to see other wild animals. Upon arriving back at the manada, the chef made another lovely dinner, and we went to bed in tents. The next day, we split up and went to 2 schools to do a Delivering Dignity program. One van had a flat tire, which slowed things up, but it's the way things go in Africa. My team had Dr. Becky, and she got to share much about the girls' bodies and how God has designed it to work. The girls were very quiet, but you could tell that Becky was getting through to them. They were thrilled to be getting 2 pairs of panties and the pads and soap for protection. When the meeting was over, they rushed outside and started exchanging the panties for the colors they wanted. Debbie's team went to another school with girls of a younger age and did a similar program. We then had a long drive back to Nairobi and got in around 9 p.m. The next morning was a safari for the team. God was gracious to have all kinds of animals waiting to be seen by the team. Everyone loved it and had a great time. That night, we had a debrief as a team. And as we do every year, every person has each member of the team share something positive about them. With all 16 people, it took 5.5 hours, but it was a highlight for most of the team members. The next morning, we went to Bishop Samuel's church in the slum. I spoke again on the difference between being a child of God and a disciple of Christ. After lunch, we then split up into a men's group, a women's group, a youth group, and a children's program. When we were done, we all headed back to the hotel. Everyone took showers and loaded up the buses, and an hour later, they headed to the airport. Thanks for all of your prayers and fasting. God definitely heard them, and I believe he was greatly pleased. We begin plans for 2026. By the way, I'll be creating another video for my extra week in Kenya where I worked with the Wata. Thanks so much for watching.